Deep beneath the emerald canopy of the Payten Basin, a profound silence masks the remnants of an empire. We often envision the tropical jungles of Central America as wild, untamed frontiers, hostile to human ambition and entirely separate from the realms of civilization. Yet as the mist rolls through the strangler figs and mahogany trees, it obscures a landscape that was never truly wild at all. What if the sprawling, impenetrable wilderness we see today is actually the overgrown ghost of the most sophisticated food forest the world has ever known? For centuries, explorers and early archaeologists viewed the Maya Lowlands through a lens of European agricultural expectations, searching for neat rows of plowed fields and vast cleared pastures. Finding only dense, chaotic vegetation, they assumed the ancient inhabitants fought a constant losing battle against an encroaching green tide. But modern archaeological evidence suggests a radically different reality. The ancient Maya civilization did not fight the rainforest, they collaborated with it, engineering a landscape so seamlessly integrated with natural ecology that its artificiality became invisible to the untrained eye. We are currently reinterpreting ancient rainforests not as pristine, untouched biomes, but as meticulously managed ecological systems. This revelation dismantles the long-held myth of the virgin jungle, revealing instead a vast, intentional garden cultivated over millennia. To understand how millions of people thrived in this seemingly unforgiving environment, we must look past the monumental stone pyramids and examine the soil beneath the canopy. Here lies the true genius of their survival, encoded in a practice that transformed apparent wilderness into an engine of enduring abundance. At the heart of this botanical mastery was the milpa system. While often reductively translated simply as a cornfield, the traditional milpa was a highly complex, multi-layered approach to agriculture that mimicked the structure of the surrounding forest. This ancient method of agroforestry, a term describing the intentional integration of trees and shrubs into crop and animal farming systems to create environmental, economic, and social benefits, was the lifeblood of the Mesoamerican world. It was a dynamic cycle of cultivation, not a static plot of land. The foundation of the milpa rested upon a polyculture known as the Three Sisters, an ingenious triad of maize, beans, and squash grown together in harmonious symbiosis. The tall stalks of maize provided a natural trellis for the climbing beans, while the beans, acting as nitrogen fixers, pulled essential nutrients from the air and deposited them into the soil to feed the heavy-feeding corn. Below them, the broad sprawling leaves of the squash acted as a living mulch, shading the earth to retain precious moisture and suppressing the growth of competing weeds. This trio was not merely a convenient pairing, but a marvel of biological engineering that yielded a complete nutritional profile for the human diet. Yet the Three Sisters were only the understory of a much grander design. A true Maya milpa incorporated dozens of other species, including chilies, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, and root crops, woven together in a dense tapestry of biodiversity. By planting an array of crops with different root depths and nutrient requirements, the cultivators ensured that the soil was never stripped of its vitality. Modern industrial agriculture often relies on clearing vast tracts of land permanently, a practice that quickly degrades the fragile, shallow soils of the tropics. The Maya understood this vulnerability intimately. They recognized that the thin topsoil of the limestone peninsula could not sustain continuous, intensive farming without catastrophic erosion and nutrient depletion. Their solution was an elegant choreography of disturbance and regeneration, a cycle that worked in tandem with the natural succession of the forest rather than against it. The cycle began with the careful clearing of a small patch of forest, a practice often misunderstood today as destructive slash-and-burn agriculture. However, the ancient method was a highly controlled, rotational system known as slash-and-char. Instead of reducing all organic matter to ash, cultivators burned the felled vegetation slowly, creating a porous, carbon-rich substance that amended the soil. This technique locked carbon into the earth and created a hospitable environment for microscopic soil life, vastly improving fertility and water retention for the impending planting season. After several years of intensive cultivation, as the crop yields naturally began to decline, the farmers did not simply abandon the plot to ruin. Instead, they initiated a deliberate process of ecological succession. They planted specific fruit and nut trees alongside the final crops, orchestrating the plot's transition back into a closed canopy forest. The land entered a fallow period, allowing the deep roots of the growing trees to draw nutrients up from the bedrock, replenishing the topsoil through the seasonal dropping of their leaves. During this regenerative phase, the resting milpa remained a vital resource. It evolved into a managed orchard, offering a bounty of avocados, papayas, cacao, and the highly nutritious ramon nut. The ramon tree, in particular, was a cornerstone of their food security, capable of producing massive quantities of edible seeds that could be dried and stored for years. This continuous yield meant that even a fallow field was a productive one, blurring the lines between agriculture and foraging in a way that modern agronomy is only beginning to comprehend. Beyond sustenance, these managed forests served as a vast living pharmacy. This brings us to the realm of ethnobotany, the scientific study of the traditional knowledge and customs of a people concerning plants and their medical, religious, and other uses. The Maya cultivated an encyclopedic understanding of the flora around them, weaving medicinal plants into the edges of their milpas and along the forest trails. Bark, roots, resins, and leaves were harvested with precision, creating a localized healthcare system rooted entirely in the biodiversity they actively maintained. The echoes of those forest gardens still resonate in the modern botanical landscape of Central America. When we walk through the Petén today, the unnatural abundance of specific human-useful trees is not a coincidence of wild ecology, but the living legacy of ancient arboriculture. The forest remembers the hands that shaped it. The towering mahogany and the sweet-scented allspice trees stand as silent witnesses to a civilization that engineered its environment with unparalleled foresight and ecological sensitivity. Recent technological advancements have dramatically expanded our comprehension of this ancient scale. Airborne LiDAR surveys, which use lasers to pierce the dense jungle canopy and map the topography below, have exposed a staggering network of agricultural terraces, raised fields in swampy bajos, and intricate water management systems. These findings confirm that the Maya Lowlands were not a patchwork of isolated city-states struggling in a wild jungle, but a contiguous, heavily engineered landscape designed to maximize agricultural output while preserving ecological stability. Pollen samples extracted from lake sediment cores corroborate this narrative of extensive yet sustainable manipulation. The sedimentary record reveals a carefully balanced ratio of forest cover to cultivated land, maintained over centuries of population growth. The ancient farmers were actively managing the microclimates of their regions, preserving enough forest canopy to ensure regular rainfall while clearing just enough space to feed millions. It was a high-wire act of ecological balancing, sustained by a profound generational transmission of environmental knowledge. This level of landscape engineering required more than just physical labor. It demanded a complex social organization and a shared cosmological worldview that prioritized reciprocity with the natural world. In the Maya belief system, the earth was not a dead commodity to be extracted, but a living entity demanding respect and ritual exchange. The planting of the milpa was a sacred act, a covenant between the human community and the divine forces that governed the rain, the soil, and the sun. The maize god, a central figure in their pantheon, embodied this cycle of birth, death, and regeneration. The narrative of the deity's descent into the underworld and subsequent resurrection mirrored the planting of the seed, its burial in the dark earth, and its triumphant sprouting toward the light. To cultivate the milpa was to participate directly in this divine drama, ensuring the continuation of the cosmos through the meticulous care of the soil. Agriculture was indistinguishable from religion. The ancient principles of reciprocity still echo in the practices of contemporary Maya farmers who continue to plant the milpa today. Before a single tree is felled or a seed is sown, permission is asked of the forest guardians. Offerings are made to the earth, acknowledging that humanity is merely borrowing the land's vitality. This spiritual framework acts as a profound ecological safeguard, preventing the over-exploitation of resources by embedding limits and respect directly into the cultural fabric. However, the story of this civilization is often framed around the concept of a catastrophic collapse. During the Terminal Classic period, around the 9th century, many of the great southern cities were abandoned, their monumental architecture swallowed by the returning forest. While prolonged droughts, shifting trade routes, and political instability undoubtedly played significant roles in this transition, the narrative of absolute failure overlooks a crucial, enduring truth. The kings and their stone pyramids may have fallen, but the agricultural knowledge survived. The milpa system proved to be incredibly resilient. As urban centers decentralized, the population dispersed back into the forest, relying entirely on the decentralized polycultural wisdom that had sustained their ancestors for millennia. The rigid hierarchical structures of the state fractured under the weight of climatic stress, but the flexible, localized knowledge of agroforestry allowed the Maya people to adapt and endure. They did not vanish. They simply reorganized around the enduring rhythms of the forest gardens. The wisdom of their layered canopy endures as a testament to biological resilience. While monoculture fields are highly susceptible to pests, diseases, and extreme weather, the immense biodiversity of the milpa creates a natural buffer against disaster. If a drought stunted the maize, the deep-rooted ramon trees still provided sustenance. If a pest attacked the beans, the squash remained untouched. This redundancy is the hallmark of a truly sustainable system, one designed to absorb shocks rather than shatter under pressure. Today, as we face accelerating climate change, catastrophic topsoil loss, and the devastating ecological consequences of industrial monocropping, the lessons of the Maya Lowlands have never been more urgent. Modern agriculture is currently trapped in a paradigm of extraction, relying on synthetic fertilizers and chemical pesticides to force yields from depleted earth. We are fighting a war against nature, a war that the ancient cultivators realized long ago could never truly be won. To look back at the ancestral methods of Mesoamerica is not to romanticize the past, but to recognize a viable blueprint for the future. The concept of the milpa challenges our modern assumption that human habitation must inevitably degrade the natural environment. It proves that with deep observation, generational patience, and a philosophy of reciprocity, human beings can act as a keystone species, actively enhancing the biodiversity and resilience of the ecosystems we inhabit. Contemporary movements in permaculture and regenerative agriculture are essentially rediscovering the principles that guided the ancient forest gardeners. The practice of companion planting, the integration of tree crops, and the focus on building soil health through organic matter are all echoes of a wisdom that predates the Industrial Revolution by thousands of years. The hidden ecological genius of the past is slowly becoming the cutting-edge science of the present. As we stand at the precipice of an uncertain ecological future, the overgrown ruins of the Petan offer a profound message of hope. The jungle did not conquer the Maya. Rather, the Maya shaped the jungle into a sanctuary that outlasted their empires. The seemingly wild, impenetrable green expanse is a monument to human ingenuity, a living library of ethnobotanical knowledge waiting to be read by those willing to listen to the whisper of the leaves. The earth remembers the care it was given, the intricate web of the milpa, the silent exchange between the roots of the maize and the soil, the deliberate architecture of the canopy above. These are not merely historical curiosities. They are an enduring invitation. They ask us to reconsider our place within the web of life, to stop viewing the natural world as an adversary to be tamed, and to once again learn the sacred art of growing a forest.